The human was not supposed to be important. Evan stood at the far edge of the Galactic Assembly Hall, surrounded by beings that looked nothing like him. Some were tall and glowing. Some floated instead of walking. Others wore armor older than human history. Compared to them, Evan felt small, fragile, and very alone. He was only a junior human envoy. No medals, no title, no guards at his side. Just a quiet man sent to observe. The hall trembled slightly as the alien princess entered. Every sound died. Thousands of eyes turned toward her. She was royalty born from an ancient star empire. Her presence bent attention like gravity. Her skin shimmered softly, changing color with the light, and her eyes carried the weight of generations. Every species bowed. Deep Perfect trained. Evan reacted late. Not because he was careless, but because he noticed something strange. The princess looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. Her posture was perfect, her face calm, but there was something heavy in her eyes. A loneliness hidden beneath discipline and power. Evan had seen that look before, on soldiers, on leaders, on people who carried too much responsibility and too little warmth. Without thinking, Evan did something forbidden. He smiled. It was not proud, not mocking, not romantic. Just a small, gentle human smile. The room froze. A sharp silence spread like ice. The princess stopped walking. Her guards shifted, weapons glowing faintly as alarms flared in their instincts. To smile at royalty was disrespect. To smile at the princess directly was unheard of. Evan realized his mistake too late. His heart pounded, his hands went cold. He prepared himself for removal, arrest, or worse. But none of that happened. The princess turned her head slowly and looked directly at him. Not through him. At him. Their eyes met. For a brief moment, centuries of royal training cracked. The princess felt something she had not felt since childhood. Not desire. Not curiosity. Comfort. No one had ever looked at her like a person before, only as a symbol, a ruler, a future, a responsibility. The smile confused her. It did not ask for anything. It did not demand attention. It simply existed. The princess blinked once, steadied herself, and continued walking as if nothing had happened. The hall breathed again. But something had already changed. Later, Evan sat alone in his assigned quarters, staring at his hands. His mind replayed the moment again and again. He had not planned it. He had not wanted attention. He only knew one thing. He had seen pain and answered it the only way he knew how. Meanwhile, in the upper chambers of the station, the princess dismissed her attendants early. She stood by the viewport, staring at the stars, her thoughts unsteady. Her people believed smiles were intimate acts, sacred signals of emotional connection, a gesture reserved for bonded souls. Yet the human had smiled freely, not knowing the meaning, or perhaps knowing something deeper. She asked for his name. Evan, an advisor, replied carefully, a minor human representative, no strategic importance. The princess repeated the name softly. Evan. For the first time in many cycles, sleep did not come easily to her. That night the princess dreamed. Not of war. Not of duty. She dreamed of warmth. And somewhere on the station, a human who thought himself invisible unknowingly stood at the edge of destiny, because in a galaxy ruled by power, he had offered something far more dangerous. Kindness. By morning, the smile had become a problem. Evan did not know it yet, but his name was already spreading through the station. It passed through whispers in metallic corridors and sharp glances in council chambers. A human had smiled at the princess. A human had broken an ancient rule without knowing it. Some called him foolish. Others called him dangerous. Evan woke early, as he always did, and prepared for another quiet day of observation. He expected nothing more than reports and silence. Instead, two armored guards waited outside his quarters. They were not human. "Evan of Earth," one said, voice flat and cold, "you are summoned." His stomach tightened. "Am I in trouble?" The guards did not answer. They escorted him through halls he had never seen before, higher levels, brighter lights, heavier security. Other species stared openly now. No curiosity, no friendliness. Suspicion. Evan realized something had changed. Inside the royal consultation chamber, the air felt heavy. Advisors of many species stood in a half-circle. At the center, elevated and calm, stood the alien princess. She looked composed, but her eyes found Evan instantly. "Approach," she said. Evan stepped forward, heart racing. He bowed this time, deep and careful. The memory of his mistake burned in his mind. The princess studied him silently. "Do you understand why you are here?" she asked. Evan swallowed. "No, Your Highness, but if I offended you, You smiled at me," she said simply. The chamber stirred. Some advisors hissed quietly. Others watched Evan like a test subject. Evan nodded, "Yes." "Why?" she asked. There was no anger in her voice. That frightened him more than shouting would have. Evan hesitated. Every answer felt wrong. Political lies tasted bitter in his mouth, so he chose honesty. "You looked alone," he said softly. A sharp intake of breath echoed across the room. Lonely was not a word used for royalty. Several advisors stepped forward at once. "Your Highness, this human is manipulating emotion. He violates cultural boundaries. Such behavior can be interpreted as a claim." Evan looked up sharply. "A claim?" The princess raised her hand, silencing them. "On my world," she explained, "a smile given freely is a sign of deep personal intent." Evan felt his chest tighten. "I didn't know," he said quickly. "On Earth, a smile means kindness. Nothing more. I swear I never meant disrespect." The princess searched his face, not for fear, but for truth. And she found it. She saw confusion, regret, sincerity. No hunger for power. No ambition. Just a human who treated a stranger like a person. The room waited. Finally, she spoke again. "Intent matters." Some advisors protested. "Your Highness." "I said intent matters." Her voice carried authority now, sharp and final. The advisors stepped back, uneasy. The princess descended from her platform and stopped a few steps from Evan. Up close, her presence was overwhelming, but her expression was strangely gentle. "You did not smile to claim," she said. "You smiled because you saw pain." Evan nodded slowly. "Yes." A long silence followed. Then she said something that shook the chamber. "In my culture, that is a strength." The council erupted. "This will be seen as weakness. The Alliance will question your judgment. Humans cannot be trusted with our traditions." The princess turned to them, eyes glowing faintly. "Then let them question." She looked back at Evan. "You will remain under observation," she said, "not as a prisoner, but as a guest of the crown." Evan blinked. "I don't understand." "You will," she replied. As he was escorted out, this time without force, Evan felt the weight of countless stares pressing into his back. He had not intended to stand out. He had not intended to challenge an empire. But somewhere between a smile and a misunderstanding, the galaxy had begun to notice humanity. And some of it was afraid. Evan quickly learned that being a guest of the crown was not a comfort. It was a test. He was moved from his small quarters to a larger chamber near the royal sector. The room was beautiful, but it felt empty. Guards stood outside at all times. Servants came and went, watching him closely, measuring every movement. No one spoke freely around him. Evan felt like a fragile object placed on a table full of sharp minds. Across the station, the council argued without rest. Some feared the princess was losing control. Others feared something worse, that humans were different in a way the galaxy did not yet understand. The princess remained silent through most of it. She watched, and she planned. One cycle later, Evan was escorted again, this time to a public chamber filled with observers from many species. There was no warning, no explanation. The princess stood above, her expression calm but distant. "This is not a punishment," she announced. "This is an understanding." Evan felt his chest tighten. The trial was not physical. It was emotional. They questioned him openly. Why did you leave your home world? To gain influence. To seek advantage. To bind yourself to alien power. Evan answered simply. I wanted to help humans be seen as more than threats. Some laughed quietly. Then the questions grew sharper. If ordered to choose between your species and this alliance, who would you save? If the princess demanded loyalty over morality, what would you obey? If kindness caused war, would you still choose it? Each question cut deeper. Evan felt fear rising, but he did not lie. I would choose people over flags, he said. I would refuse any order that harmed the innocent. And if kindness caused war, he added softly, then maybe the war was already there. The chamber fell silent. The princess watched him closely now. After the trial, Evan was dismissed. No praise. No verdict. That night he sat alone again, hands shaking slightly. He wondered if he had failed, if honesty had been a mistake. He wondered if he should have smiled less in this galaxy. Elsewhere, the princess faced her own struggle. Her advisors warned her openly now. He weakens your image. He challenges our traditions. He makes you hesitate. The princess did not deny it. Yes, she said, he does. They expected anger. Instead, she continued. And for the first time, I asked myself why. That unsettled them more than rebellion would have. Later, she visited the observation garden, a quiet place filled with artificial stars and living crystal trees. Evan was already there, unaware she had followed him. He stood staring into the light, shoulders heavy. You answered honestly today, she said from behind him. Evan turned quickly and bowed. I'm sorry if my answers caused trouble. She stepped closer. They caused truth. He looked at her uncertain. I don't want to be special, he admitted. I just don't know how to be anything other than human. The princess studied his face. On my world, she said slowly, we are taught to hide weakness until we forget what it feels like. Evan nodded. On mine we hide it too, we just fail more often. For the first time she laughed quietly. A soft sound, rare, honest. That moment did not go unnoticed. Cameras recorded it, observers whispered, the idea spread fast. The princess was changing. And the reason stood beside her, unaware of how dangerous that made him. As Evan returned to his chamber that night, a message flashed across secure channels. Unrest among allied fleets. Questions of succession. Fear of human influence. The galaxy was shifting. And Evan, the man who only meant to smile, stood unknowingly at the center of a storm that had just begun to form. Fear does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Across the alliance, quiet meetings began without the princess's approval. Old admirals, rigid diplomats, and proud elders shared the same concern. The human was changing things, not through force, but through presence. That was worse. They decided the problem needed to be removed. Evan felt it before he understood it. The guards outside his chamber were different that day. Their stance was tense. Their eyes avoided him. When he was escorted through the corridor, doors sealed behind him instead of opening ahead. "This route is unusual," Evan said carefully. No one answered. They entered a lower section of the station, an industrial ring rarely used by diplomats. The air smelled of metal and heat. Evan's pulse quickened. "Where are we going?" he asked again. Still no reply. Then the alarms began. Not loud, controlled, internal. The station shuddered. An explosion tore through a nearby power conduit. The corridor lights died. Smoke filled the air. One guard fell instantly. Another slammed into the wall, armor cracked. Evan was thrown to the floor. For a moment, all he heard was ringing. Then screams. Civilians, alien workers, were trapped in a collapsed transit chamber nearby. Fire spread fast. Emergency shields failed. The remaining guard shouted into his communicator. "Containment breach, non-hostile casualties." Orders came back cold and clear. "Seal the sector." Evan stared at him. "There are people in there." The guard hesitated. "Orders are orders." That was when Evan understood. This was not an accident. It was a message. If the human died quietly, or if others died around him, the problem would solve itself. Evan stood up, ignoring the pain in his side. "No," he said. Before the guard could react, Evan ran toward the smoke. The heat was unbearable. Metal screamed as it warped. Evan coughed, eyes burning, but he pushed forward. Inside the chamber, several injured aliens lay trapped under debris. Different species, different shapes. All terrified. "Help is coming," Evan shouted, though he did not know if it was true. He lifted what he could, dragged bodies, shielded a childlike creature with his own back as fire burst nearby. His strength was nothing special, but his will was relentless. When emergency teams finally broke through, they found Evan unconscious, surrounded by survivors. Above, in the command spire, the princess felt the disturbance like a blade. She arrived at the medical bay moments after Evan was brought in. His uniform was torn, his skin burned, his breathing shallow. For the first time in her life, the princess felt fear, not for her throne, but for one fragile human life. "Who authorized the sector seal?" she demanded. Silence answered her. That was enough. She turned to the council chambers and summoned every leader, every conspirator, every doubter. Evan survived. Barely. When he woke, the room was quiet. No guards, no advisors, just the princess sitting beside him. "You should not have gone in," she said softly. Evan managed a weak smile. Someone had to. Her hands tightened. "They tried to kill you," she admitted. "I know. Are you afraid?" Evan looked at the ceiling for a long moment. "Yes," he said honestly, "but I'd be more afraid of becoming the kind of person who walks away." The princess stood slowly. That day she addressed the entire alliance. "There are those among you who believe kindness is weakness," she said. "Today, a human burned to protect lives that were not his own." Her eyes blazed. "If that frightens you," she continued, "then you should be afraid, because the future does not belong to the cruel." The galaxy listened. Some in shame, some in anger, and some, for the first time, in hope. Recovery was slower than Evan expected. His body healed, but the station felt different now. Conversations stopped when he entered a room. Some aliens looked at him with respect, others with fear, a few with open hatred. Evan did not enjoy any of it. He spent long hours alone, thinking about the explosion, the sealed doors, and the people who had almost been left to die. The thought haunted him more than the pain ever did. The princess visited often, but their conversations were quieter now. He could sense a storm behind her calm. One evening she arrived without guards. That alone made Evan sit up straighter. "There will be another council," she said. This time they will not hide. Evan nodded. They're scared. Yes, she replied, and fear makes leaders dangerous. She paused, then spoke words that made his breath catch. They want me to distance myself from you, publicly. Evan felt something tighten in his chest, but he did not interrupt. They believe the alliance will fracture if I continue to protect a human who challenges tradition. And what do you believe? Evan asked quietly. The princess looked at him, truly looked at him. I believe, she said, that you have shown my people a mirror they were never meant to see. She turned away toward the viewport. They also made another proposal. Evan waited. They offered you power, she continued, a title, a formal bond, status above most of your kind. Evan frowned. Why? Because if you belong to the system, she said, you can be controlled. Silence filled the room. Evan stood slowly, his movements careful. I don't want that, he said. The princess turned, surprised. You did not even ask what it includes. I already know, Evan replied. It includes silence. She studied him, searching for doubt. There is another path, she said softly. You could leave, return to Earth, live quietly. I can ensure your safety. Evan walked closer to the window. Stars drifted past like distant fires. If I leave, he asked, what happens to the next person who chooses kindness? The princess had no answer. The next day, the Grand Council assembled. This time, Evan walked in by choice. The chamber buzzed with tension. Leaders whispered. Some stared openly. The princess took her place at the center. Before anyone could speak, Evan stepped forward. Gasps rippled across the room. I am human, Evan said clearly, and I do not understand all your customs, but I understand fear. Murmurs followed. I was offered power, he continued. I refused it. That shocked them. I was offered safety, he said. I have not accepted it. Now the room was silent. I will not stay because I am protected, Evan said, and I will not leave because I am threatened. He looked around the chamber. I will stay only if I am allowed to remain what I am. The council leader sneered. And what is that? Evan answered without hesitation. Someone who helps. The princess rose to her feet. He has made his choice, she said. Now I will make mine. She faced the council. There will be no forced bond, she declared. No titles, no chains disguised as honor. Some protested loudly. She did not stop. The human remains here not as property, not as symbol, but as proof. Her eyes swept the chamber. Proof that strength can kneel beside compassion and not lose its crown. Evan felt his throat tighten. He had not come to change the galaxy. Yet somehow it was already bending. And in that moment, Evan understood something deeply human. Sometimes the bravest act is not fighting. It is refusing to become what fear demands. Change did not come with applause. It came with discomfort. Across the Alliance, old systems resisted the shift that Evan represented. Some worlds delayed cooperation. Others tested limits, pushing borders and authority, waiting for weakness. They believed compassion could be exploited. The princess knew this moment would come. She called for a summit on neutral ground, a vast open platform suspended above a blue gas giant. No shields, no hidden fleets, just open space and open truth. Advisors begged her to reconsider. It is too dangerous, they warned. You expose yourself. You expose him. The princess listened calmly. Then she made a decision that shocked everyone. She ordered all visible weapons removed. Evan stood beside her when the delegates arrived. He wore no uniform now, just simple human clothing. He felt small again, like he had on his first day. But this time, he did not feel invisible. Representatives gathered in tense silence. One stepped forward, tall and armored, voice sharp. You weaken the alliance by trusting emotion, the delegate said. You risk war for one human. The princess answered without raising her voice. I risk war for a principle. She stepped forward unguarded. I was taught that power means control, she said, but I have seen where that path ends. She gestured toward Evan. This human has no army, no throne, no fear of losing power because he never sought it. The delegate scoffed, and that makes him dangerous. Yes, the princess agreed, dangerous to cruelty. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Another leader spoke. What if others follow him? What if your people begin to question authority? The princess did not hesitate. Then authority must learn to answer. Evan felt his chest tighten. He had never asked for this, never wanted to stand as an example, yet here he was witnessing something rare. A ruler choosing vulnerability. The summit grew heated. Accusations flew, threats followed. Then something unexpected happened. A smaller species stepped forward, one rarely heard in council. We were saved by the human, their leader said, during the station incident. Another voice joined. And us. And us. Stories followed, not heroic speeches, simple truths, small moments of help, shared water, lifted debris, stayed hands. Evan lowered his head, overwhelmed. The princess listened quietly. Finally, she raised her hand. This is not about choosing a human over the galaxy, she said. This is about choosing the galaxy over fear. She turned to Evan. Will you walk away if this costs you everything? Evan met her eyes. I already decided, he said softly. I won't leave people behind. The princess nodded. Then she did something no one expected. She removed the symbol of royal authority from her chest and placed it on the ground between them. Gasps echoed across the platform. I do not rule because of this, she said. I rule because my people believe in me. She looked at the delegates. If that belief is broken by kindness, then perhaps it should be. Silence followed. Not angry silence. Thinking silence. The summit ended without threats, without victory declarations. But something had shifted. That night, as stars drifted silently beyond the station, Evan stood alone on the observation deck. The princess joined him. You risked everything, he said. She looked out into the dark. No, she replied. I finally stopped protecting the wrong things. Evan smiled. And for the first time, the princess smiled first. The galaxy did not change all at once. But it had taken its first step. And it had done so unarmed. Years later, historians would argue about when the galaxy truly changed. Some pointed to treaties. Others to reforms. A few to the summit above the gas giant. But those closest to the truth knew it began much smaller. With a human who chose to stay. Evan never became a ruler. He refused every formal title offered to him. He lived simply, walking the station corridors, visiting outposts, listening more than he spoke. Yet his presence reshaped things. Leaders began asking different questions. Guards hesitated before following cruel orders. Diplomats learned that silence could sometimes be stronger than threats. And at the center of it all stood the princess. She ruled with steady hands but no longer hid behind tradition. Her people noticed. Some resisted, many followed. One quiet cycle, she summoned Evan to the highest balcony of the station. The stars burned gently beyond the glass. There is something I must say, she told him. Evan sensed the weight in her voice. My people have watched us, she continued. They see how you stand beside me, not behind me. They see how you challenge me without force. Evan shifted uneasily. I never meant to challenge you. I know, she replied. That is why it matters. She faced him fully now. In our culture, she said, A promise spoken before the stars is not about possession, it is about shared direction. Evan understood then. This was not a command. It was a choice. I will not bind you, she said. I will not cage you with duty or crown. But I ask this, will you walk the future with me, not as my subject, but as my equal? The galaxy had expected many endings. This was not one of them. Evan looked out at the endless dark, then back at her. I can't promise perfection, he said quietly. Humans fail a lot. The princess smiled softly. So do rulers. He took a breath. But I can promise this, Evan continued. I'll keep choosing people over power every time. The princess lowered her head, not in submission but in respect. That is why I choose you, she said. They did not announce it loudly. There was no grand ceremony. The galaxy learned slowly, through observation, through change. A princess who ruled with compassion. A human who refused to rule at all. Together they became a symbol no empire could control. Years passed. When the princess finally stepped down, she did not fade into myth. She remained, guiding from the side, teaching those who followed her that authority was not ownership. Evan grew older, his hair turned gray, his steps slowed. But his smile never changed. On his final day, as he rested beneath a simulated sky filled with familiar stars, the princess sat beside him. You changed everything, she said softly. Evan shook his head weakly. No, I just treated you like a person. She took his hand. And that, she replied, was enough to change the galaxy. When he was gone, the princess ordered no statues, no monuments. Instead, she made one simple law across the alliance. In every hall of power, no matter the species, there would be space for kindness. Not as weakness, but as proof. And somewhere in the vastness of space, humanity earned a quiet reputation. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as the species that dared to smile first.